everyone, welcome to the channel. Today we talk about logistics for crowdfunding. I want to give you some tips on how you can succeed in your crowdfunding campaign when it comes to logistics. Before we go ahead, remember to subscribe to the channel, leave a like and a comment if you enjoyed the video because this is going to help us grow, and make sure also that you always receive updates about my next video. Moving forward with our topic, today we're going to talk about something really exciting. Logistics for crowdfunding, which I think is not very excited for many of you. Now, before we go ahead, let's discuss why logistics is crucial for crowdfunding campaigns. So, crowdfunding in general is a great way to launch innovative products or any product that you may want to launch but you don't have budget for, but you also need to make sure that you have a seamless experience when it comes to fulfillment because your backers needs to be happy, right? So, you need to keep your reputation, and it's very easy to lose it when it comes to crowdfunding because of inexperienced partners or because you're inexperienced also in the overall logistics processes and you don't understand what also the third party is trying to communicate to you. Let's be clear. So let's dig deeper into the process and what you need to keep in mind. So I know this is something very difficult, but you should plan. You should plan and forecast. You should try to understand what's the capacity that you have when it comes to manufacturing. Before launching the campaign, you should have that figured out actually. Like, you should know how much you can produce, how long it's gonna take, because you need to keep the expectations and what you promise to expectation up, and you need to make sure that you keep your promises. So if you already know that your manufacturer has capacity of 5 devices per day, for example, you need to consider that most likely they're not going to produce 5 units per day. Something is going to happen. So what's going to happen? They may produce 3 or 4. Okay, what's my lead time? How long is it going to take for me to ship the units to the first 100 backers, for example? In the best case, it's going to take me 10 days. In the worst case, it's going to take me a month. So what do? You don't overpromise. You don't go for the 10 days. Maybe you don't even go for the 30, the worst case scenario. But you want to keep the expectations up. Like, you want to make sure that you keep your promises. So of course that really depends on the product and your situation, but what I'm trying to say is that you shouldn't never consider the best outcome when it comes to crowdfunding. First of all, because it's the first time you're most likely producing, first time you're approaching this type of campaigns. Unless you're super experienced, then you probably don't need to watch even this video, But if you're not experienced and this is your first crowdfunding campaign, then you should make sure you understand the capacity of your manufacturer. And when I'm talking about capacity of your manufacturer, I'm talking about when they're going to start the production, how many they can produce per day. Is there anything that could be faulty? Like, when we talk about raw materials, is there anything that could be like a bottleneck, could become a bottleneck? For example, sensors. Like, they're using phones, tablets, computers, any, let's say, electronic device, also in cars, right? So sensors are, and chips, what we call like the semiconductors, basically, let's say. There's scarcity, right? There are periods of the year where you're okay, and period where you have some scarcity. So this could be a bottleneck. So if you have an issue with the sensor, it's not working, or it's not up to the expectation and you need to change it, then you have a big problem, okay? So I don't want to get into details for this, but what I'm trying to say is try to understand what could be the bottleneck in your production. It's gonna be the manpower, it's gonna be any raw material, any component that you will not be able to source, or that could end up being defective, for example, so you need to reorder one, so that's something that you should think about, like what could go wrong in the production, and what's the delay, okay? So how long does it take to receive a new batch of those components, or how long is it going to take for those raw materials to be sourced again in case there's like a faulty batch? So it's more like planning and preparation and understanding the capacity of the manufacturer, but at the same time, just start looking for a third party, because once you understand what are the timelines and how long it's going to take to produce X amount of units, you also need to think about who's going to ship those, right? So ideally, there are 3 things to keep in mind when it comes to planning. The first one is determine the production capacity and the capacity of your manufacturer. We said it already. What could be the bottleneck? What could create a delay? You should set realistic timelines, so understand based on what's the capacity of the manufacturer and based on projected expectations, in terms of projected number of orders that you could ship or you will need to ship, how long it's going to take. And secure some reliable suppliers when it comes to both shipping packages, shipping boxes, fulfillment like a 3PL, and so on. Then you have packaging and shipping. You need to figure out how to ship, because once you collect the orders, you collect everything, it's manual. Like, you have orders in an Excel, you have names, products, so you need a system, you need a third party that fulfills. You can do it yourself, but it really depends on how big the campaign is going to be and how many backers you're going to have, basically. So you will probably need a third party because they're going to offer you some very cheap rates based on the volume, optimize let's say operations, faster transit times, whatever. So you most likely need a third party. But it's also true, this is the time where you set also the packaging materials. Like, based on the packaging material that you choose, you're going to pay more or less in shipping. Remember the volumetric weight. You remember that you don't pay most likely just on the weight of the product, you pay also on how big it is. So you may want to actually get an understanding of different, let's say, of prices and capacity of multiple partners. Just don't go for 1 or 2, do like a benchmark. You should consider like few partners per location and just try to benchmark a little bit and consider how long it's going to take if you, let's say, use a local fulfillment center, or if you use a fulfillment center that is close to your manufacturer, who has the best rates, and what are the pros and cons when it comes to timelines as well. So you should do like a little benchmark comparing prices, transit times, service level agreements, and so on before choosing. And just make sure those are not just numbers they are thrown at you, but they are pure quotations. And if they can't be quotations, what's the worst case scenario? Always ask what's the worst case scenario, what's the maximum you can have to pay, and ask for a warranty. Like, I don't want to pay more than 20, everything should be an all-included price, so just make sure it doesn't go over 20. So try to have an agreement with the partner that could assure you that you're not going to pay more than that, because let me tell you, your crowdfunding campaign, you may set a budget of $30,000, for example, for shipping, fulfillment, and whatever. You're going to end up paying 60 very easily. You're not going to meet your expectations. So that's why it's important to continuously communicate with your third parties, suppliers, fulfillment centers, and so on, and also to make sure that the manufacturing doesn't get too delayed. And it could make sense to actually engage at a later stage with the fulfillment center, just because prices are going to change. If you just started the production, it's going to take you 6 months. There's a problem. Prices, fuel surcharges, emergency surcharges, they're going to change over a period of 6 months, especially if then you decide to start shipping in the last quarter of the year, when prices will skyrocket. So whatever you budget in, you should consider probably double. And also, there's going to be a lack of capacity. So be clear and try to understand in which period of the year you could start the fulfillment, considering also the delays, because that's going to impact your prices, the capacity of the warehouse, and the promises that they made to you. So when it comes to packaging, again, you should test them first of all. So you should probably send out some shipment, do some drop tests, just to make sure that those are the right packages for you, that they're resistant enough, especially based on the products that you have. Ship products to yourself, to your friends. Try the process, the transit times. Try to put as many products as possible. Depends on what you're actually developing, what you're trying to produce, if it's more than one product or just one. Or send multiple samples or fake samples within the box just to see how strong it is. Do some drop tests, see how the product reacts when it's shipped and has a long way to go basically to your customer. If it arrives damaged, if you need a stronger packaging, and so on, how much you're going to actually pay, right? Most likely the third party, the 3PL, is going to allow you to do some tests, and this is where you should do it. Try to replicate what you're trying to, let's say, sell and ship it with those boxes. You could get easily some samples. It's going to be more expensive, but you can still get samples of packages even without reaching a minimum order quantity, okay? You can negotiate shipping rates. For example, for this campaign, to go lower, and then maybe if you decide to continue and it's successful and you have your own e-commerce store and you want to keep shipping with this 3PL, then you could eventually decide to agree on another type of price. But in general, with crowdfunding, since you have volumes that will be shipped and received all together, you may have some leverage when it comes to shipping and negotiation power. But let me tell you, not everyone is going to give you good prices just because you have 1,000, 2,000, 100,000 orders for a crowdfunding campaign. It's more about also the potential that you have in the long run. Maybe how long it took to collect 100,000 orders, maybe you're collecting since 5 years of crowdfunding campaign. That doesn't show potential, for example. Many are willing to give you better prices if they see potential. So it's also the way you pitch it to those third parties, to the 3PLs basically. And then very important, if your campaign has international backers, just look into custom regulations, okay? Just make sure you know about trade compliance, or you should make sure that is in place, certificates, or simply like custom regulations or thresholds or duties, taxes, and so on. It's like a total different story. And you should also communicate to your backers. So you should inform them if it's everything a duty, if the shipments are duty and tax paid, if they have to pay for taxes and duties, like who's gonna pay for that, and so on. And then another thing is customer service, like still operations and related to the logistics. Like many of those backers will contact you and say, where's my parcel? Is this being shipped? I'm waiting since too long. You said last month that I'm going to receive it within last week, but I didn't. So where's my parcel? So you should have transparent and regular updates when it comes to the logistics, like what's going on in the process. The stocks are now delivered to the warehouse, blah blah blah. So you should keep the backers informed as much as possible. They invested money into your idea, and if you tell them you will receive the products by this date, they expect you to do it. And if this is like delay, that may be fine. But if it's longer, they'll start thinking that you're a scam. But not only a transparent and constant communication, you should also have timely responses, like respond on time. Don't let them wait too much. So you should have someone that is constantly looking at those inquiries to have like a seamless experience, because that will reduce the panic and also the anger when they're waiting for too long. The first thing they're gonna do, those guys, is just write a bad review. Also have some post-campaign surveys. It's really important to understand what your customer thinks about the product so you can improve it, what they think about the shipping, what they think about the overall unboxing experience. Just ask as many questions as you can so you can improve your costs, your processes, the experience, the product, and everything. Running surveys is actually crucial. That's what's gonna lead you to the next step, like just to the growth as well, like learning from the mistakes, learning from what's not working very well right now. And who's better to give you such feedbacks than the customer itself? And of course, if you have some fulfillment challenges, as I said, address them with your backers. Try to calm them down and say, okay, we encountered this problem, we're taking care of it, there's going to be a slight delay. Just try to be transparent. You don't want to over communicate, but you still want to keep them informed so they understand that there's a real issue. Oh, we ran out of stock for shipping packages, we can't ship. Well, that sounds a little bit but it's understandable. It's not like I don't want to ship to you, I need to wait 10 days because of packages, I don't have shipping boxes, for example. That's very, very basic stuff to say. But you should keep them informed about what's happening in the process so that you don't get them mad just because they're waiting, they don't know what's gonna happen. And when you ask for quotes, overall, to just recap, when you look for a third party, just make sure that they also align with timelines, that you have update quotes from time to time. If your process is taking longer, ask for more quotes, ask for updated quotes, because as I said, rates from couriers changes from time to time. Even warehouse processes may change from time to time. So what I told you today is not going to be valid maybe next month, because there's going to be, a change in prices or change in processes. Sometimes the warehouse will expand and have a new area, or maybe like for this month we stop doing this type of process or whatever. And just keep in mind the quotations generally last for 30 days, so you always need to read the term and never budget based on an initial quotation. Okay, the closest you get to the fulfillment, the more you should start asking for update quotes and try to finalize the price. But you also need to make sure to keep your manufacturer accountable for the production and for the timelines as well. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. Make sure you leave a like and a comment if you enjoyed the video, but yet you also subscribe to the channel so you always be informed about my next videos. See you in the next one!